Today on the MrMaple Show podcast, it's a July Collector's Corner special with Bryan and Corbin.
All right, guys, welcome to the MrMaple Show podcast. We got a great show for you guys today. I got my homie Corbin here hanging out. We've got a collector's corner for you guys here today on the podcast. So make sure you go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do a video version of this podcast on our YouTube channel. We've got all kinds of other crazy content over there. And make sure you go and cruise MrMaple.com, man. We got a lot of great sales going on over there on our website. And those of you who are tuning in to listen today, we appreciate you. We appreciate your business and an opportunity for us to provide some amazing plants for everybody.
What's up, guys? Glad to be here for the Collector Corner podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. We've kind of come up with this group of different categories and collections and things, just as kind of talking points for different trees that we offer here at the nursery. It's a cool way to put a collection of trees together, and that's an opportunity for us to kind of dive into some of these cool cultivars.
Yeah, I also, whenever we're talking about 10 at 10, usually we're talking about a awesome plant, but sometimes it's not a plant that we have in the garden or, we don't have as much experience with. But these ones, they're coming straight from the heart. Yeah. They're coming straight from the dome. And I'm excited because there's some really cool cultivars that Bryan's collected on here and that I've collected and, just kind of sing their praises. So that's always fun to kind of talk about that Mount Rushmore. You're a Mount Rushmore of maples, so...
Yeah, the Collector's Corner is a lot of fun, man. I think it's kind of a new way for us to format some of these conversations, and we've got some really good list of trees here. Try to provide you guys with different ways of looking at all these different cultivars, because, you can kind of just lump everything into Japanese maples, right? But then you start breaking it down into cultivars and what they offer as far as texture and color and what they can do for your landscape. So I like that aspect of it. The diversity of maples is very, very deep, and there's a lot of cool plants that we have on here. We have a few non-maples on here as well today, so I always like to mix in a few conifers or something like that we can squeeze in and talk about. But man, I guess we should get right to it. We're starting out the Collector's Corner here with me and Corbin. And we're going to start out strong here because I know this is on a lot of people's minds, right? We're going to do me and Corbin's current, now this isn't like all-time favorite, but this is like current favorite Makawa variant out there. And what'd you start out with, Corbin?
Yeah, so it's the summertime, guys. Right now, summer's just starting. It's hot out in there in the greenhouses. And usually whenever summer starts rolling around, some of the stuff that has that green on green variegation starts to, catch your eye. And for me, this Makawa spot, I love Makawas, but lily pad is going to be my pick for right now because, summer, I'm thinking about frogs. I'm thinking about all those little amphibians that could be living underneath the lily pads. And this Makawa form has such a nice variegation, but my favorite part about it is the shape.
Yeah, really cool variant. I think really different when it comes to, a lot of the variants out there. I like lily pad for that. Got a really strong variegation on it. That green with light green variegation really kind of deforms each leaf a little bit. You get a lot of crazy texture with it. I think the lobes are a little bit stretched out too on lily pad too. It's like your skinnier lobes on that, so it has a really cool texture when you compare it to other Makawa variances. in great shape, like you said. I mean, we just recently planted a 10-gallon lily pad here at the farm and in the Mr. Maple Gardens, and it looks so nice right now. You give it some sun and you get a little blush, a little kind of pink blush over top of that too. It's nice, man. It's got a great texture, great form. Lots of good reasons to love lily pad. I went with kind of a newer introduction. I went with Acer palmatum Nemo.
Yeah, Nemo, that's one. It's right in front of the office of the nursery.
Yeah.
It is electric during the springtime. It's a very small dwarf plant, but it packs a punch. It kind of looks like somebody just kind of highlighted a plant in the garden with an orange highlighter.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is one that I recently got to. My wife recently discovered that we had like this underwater theme going on that we didn't even realize it. So we've got, an octopus, we've got a sea urchin, we've got a peve starfish. We had to get a Nemo, we got a koi over there too. So, we're playing around with that kind of underwater theme, with plants with underwater theme names. But yeah, Nemo, great orange, variant on the Makawa types. Really, really nice color on that. And right now, just the one that I just got home and planted, it's just got some of that new growth popping over top of the green summer color. So you got that orange coming back strong right now. So like all the little tips to the ends of those branches on it have this nice little orange flush on top of that. Looks super cool. When it comes to Makawa variances, I mean, there's so many out there. But I'm a collector at heart, so I like to try to get the collection of all the different Makawa types, right?
Yeah, I think like what you were harping on before, one of my favorite parts about Makawa is that secondary flush that comes out.
Yeah.
Because, if you're looking at seedlings, that secondary flush can be indicative of spring color. If you're looking at a cultivar, then you're just getting that little splash of what you had during the springtime, and It's just a nice reminder. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to get a little bit of that blush, but next year and whenever fall comes around, we're going to get a show again.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So we got another cool category here. We're just trying to break this down and give us some good talking points. So let's move on to our next topic here of summer interest maples. This is one that I think it needs to be focused on a little bit more because everybody knows we got great spring color with maples. We got great fall color with maples. I mean, they're known for that. But summer interest maples, I think, is kind of like, the sweet spot because you need something going on in the summer that's really catching your eye. I went with one, Acer palmatum Gable's Glory. Now, Gable's Glory is one that I currently don't have in my collection yet, as crazy as that sounds. But I'm planning on getting it because, I had this tree back in Oklahoma, always performed really well. The colors on it are crazy, but I don't have one in my current garden. And I was like, there's something wrong with that. I got to get a Gable's Glory because it's always changing colors, and especially in the summer months because you have just so many different shades of reds and oranges and kind of these weird like yellow colors that you can get with Gable's Glory. Even like pink tones, so it's very multicolored when it comes to the summer months. You got this new flush growth over top. It just provides so much color contrast in the summer, which is rare for a lot of maples that are more of just kind of settling into that green tone into the summer months.
Yeah, Gable's Glory, that is one. You just like kind of connected some pieces in my mind. I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh man, like Gable's Glory kind of puts on that summer color of things like Akane or of Kristen Starr, where you have the oranges, the yellows, the pinks, but it just puts it on the whole entire tree at the same time, and it's constantly changing, but you're moving through that spectrum of color of those oranges, the pinks, and then through like almost to that kind of yellowy, pale yellowy color too. And it's just like that is one that it's such a magical tree. Especially, I talk about this all the time too, but walking through a greenhouse full of maples that is going to be one that's going to call your attention.
Yeah, if it's not on your list and you're just walking through a greenhouse, like if you come out to one of our open houses and you're walking through that house, I can almost guarantee you Gable's Glory is going to catch your attention. You're going to have to take a second look at it. And for that reason, I think it definitely needs to be on the list, especially for summer interest. Now, you got a cool one listed here. What'd you list, man? You got a weird one here for everybody.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit of a weird guy. I like the weird trees. And Purple Curl, that was one that it just kind of spoke to me as soon as I saw it. I was like, oh, man, obviously there's Pebe Starfish, but this one kind of offers a little bit more funkiness going on. And for me, you know, this is cool to watch in the springtime. It's whatever, like, you know, awesome spring colors. But then as that summer kind of pushes in, as that spring kind of continues through, you slowly start to get that curl. For me, I've probably got mine in a little bit too much sun, so it's kind of burning on the edges, but it adds to the aesthetic for me. Like,
right.
I kind of like that crispy look. I mean, the tree looks very healthy and it's doing fine, but just like a little bit of burn on the edge. And I'm like, you sit there and look at it, and it's just, it gives you a color unlike anything else.
It's almost hard to really describe. I mean, when you get that malting effect where it's just kind of all of these different colors are distorted together into the leaf, and there's these weird splotches of color in different places, and then you have that curling down of the leaf lobe. It looks like nothing else, honestly. Like, I mean, we talk about it all the time. Probably the closest thing that's similar is Magic Moon, but it's like Purple Curl takes it to the next level. You know what I mean? You got that maroon leaf, and then you have this weird kind of green and yellow malting, these kind of orange flushes inside that too. It just looks totally bizarre. And the more sun you give it, like you said, the more prominent and the more just gnarly that leaf looks. So it definitely plays into like a summer interest, like we're talking about. And when you got a lot of trees that have kind of faded to green, and that's kind of where they stay until fall. But with Purple Curl, you're still getting some really nice color flushes coming in there, and always that interesting curling textured leaf.
Yeah, I love how it gets like a green eye on it too.
Right.
And you get like the play between the green eye and the oranges on the outside of the leaf. Oh my gosh. And it's so cool too. I have this next to an Amagi Shiguri and a black lace.
Nice.
And you know, that's kind of like three distinct colors going on, and they just all kind of play. It's like, okay, well, they're all in that sort of red, orange, like purplish range, but they're all just kind of playing different notes and mixing together, and it just looks so awesome. I love Purple Curl. Yeah,
that's a cool tree. I mean, I think with Purple Curl, it's like it may not be for everybody. You know, it's so weird, so different. You know, at first glance, if you didn't know a whole lot about plants, you might wonder, is there something wrong with this tree? You know, like there's something going on here. But it's definitely a collector's favorite. I think just it provides some kind of color that we all are looking for that we don't really know how to describe until we see it on Purple Curl. And then you're like, oh, yeah, that right there. I want some of that. So really cool tree for the summer interest. And we'll just keep moving right along. Our next category is dwarf Japanese maples. I love the dwarf Japanese maples. I'm growing kind of a smaller size garden, creating this crazy garden space in my backyard, and I need smaller trees. I don't have room for a lot of these big giant maples out there. So I love dwarf Japanese maples, and I have this currently in my collection. I've got a good size one of this. I've got Acer palmatum Emony.
Yeah, Emony, that was one of the first like kind of large dwarf maples I had seen in a 10-gallon size.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, we had that big shipment during the wintertime. You just see all these giant trees, and then as the springtime comes and you start seeing things leaf, that's when Bryan and I started licking our chops, because I think the same set you bought and your Emony out of, I purchased the tree that I have on this list as well. So
definitely, we were thinking along the same lines here. Yeah, I remember when the Emonies came in, you know, and there's one that's not real common in production here in America. It's from Europe, and so they're not as readily available here yet, but we're working on them. We're getting this in production. We've got a good amount of things in production on this. But I remember when they came in and Matt was like, he was like, dude, don't miss the opportunity on this, man. Like, getting one of these this size is crazy. It's got a tiny, tiny little leaf on it. It does get just a slight little border when it's coming out in the spring. And just that round ball shape just looks so cool out in my garden. I've got this paired next to a rising sun, which is Acer japonicum rising sun, because I wanted to play on the tiny leaf and then the large leaf of the japonicum. Nice little texture play there in the garden. But I love the dwarf Japanese maple. So which one did you pick?
So I went with Kiyohime, which, you know, that's a classic for me. I know, you know, maybe that's a little boring for some of the hardcore collectors, but this is one of the first large trees I ever bought. There were some learning processes involved, you know, about watering and that sort of thing, especially with a 10-gallon. But this is a tree that has, it's just won its place in my heart because of how hardy it is, how resilient this tree is, and how beautiful it is during the spring, summer, and the fall time. Yeah.
Beautiful little plant, man. I love Kiyohime for that reason. Like, super heat tolerant, super resilient tree. Small leaves too, with that nice kind of purple to red border on that leaf. Just really, really small too. I mean, you could fit this in just about anywhere in your garden, especially if you're working in a small space or container gardening. I know you do a lot of that. So, I mean, it's a perfect tree for, you know, even if you live in an apartment and you got a back little deck that you can sit this out in a pot. I mean, it works great for that. So there's so many different ways to grow it. I think that's what a lot of these dwarf varieties are great for. You know, you can put them in containers, you can squeeze them into a tight spot in your yard and provide some interest in the garden.
Yeah, I agree. Dwarf maples, that's the way of the future. You know, it's like land lots are getting smaller and, you know, things are becoming more expensive, but it's like we still want to be able to garden. And I love how a lot of the larger size trees are becoming like these dwarfs and getting selected to become dwarf trees, like Sengukaku, you know, and that sort of thing, where it's like these certain trees have lasted long enough to where we can get a dwarf mutation off of them.
Right.
And that's so cool. It's super exciting.
Absolutely. All right. So we're moving right along here, guys. Let's do the next category is going to be plants with amazing texture. Now, I mean, we could have picked anything here. I mean, there's so many, you know, examples of amazing texture in the garden, but I, you know, I'm a sucker for a Japanese maple. So when I always think of, like, first when I think of plants in general, I think of Japanese maples, and then I go from there. I kind of go down the list from that. Just the way my brain works when I'm thinking about different plants. But I went with one that's kind of just standing out to me texture-wise in my own garden right now. I've got Acer japonicum fairy lights. And now I bought this in a ball and burlap size, so it was good size for you know, fairy lights. But man, the texture on that thing is so wild right now. That really finely dissected leaf, just the intricacy of that, the serrated edges. I mean, everything about it is just so ornamental. You know what I mean? Like, it has a texture that is just out of this world. When you look at it, everything about it just draws you into the plant, the structure, the leaf, and amazing colors too. You know, I've got just a slight little blush on it because I've got it in some sun. And just right now, like, I just look around my garden and texture wise, that thing's going off.
Now that's definitely one of the ones where you look at it, you know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And it's just going to blow your socks off. I mean, seeing a large specimen of that one at Buckholtz during the fall time, you know why it's called fairy lights.
Yeah.
It's because it literally looks like it's on fire. Just some crazy colors. Japonicums do not miss with the fall color. And just getting it through that lace leaf Japonicum, you know, style leaf is just so amazing. And that's one I could stare at all day.
Definitely. And I see we were thinking along the same lines here. So what'd you choose for amazing texture?
So, yeah, I mean, I picked another Japonicum as well. I picked my Ikujaku. I mean, I feel weird because it's like, the collector corner, you want to pick something that, you're passionate about. But there's so many times I feel like I've talked about this plant until I'm like blue in the face. But, I mean, it's just hard to beat a nice texture of a Japonicum, either if you're looking for that large leaf in some nice shade, or you're looking for a more moderate size leaf that's really broad, or it gives you a little bit of texture if you're putting it in the sun. So for me, my Ikujaku, I just love the cut of that leaf. It's just so beautiful. It's so ornamental, and it really speaks to me on so many levels, like whether it's the texture that the leaf provides, whether it's the texture that the actual tree itself provides, like in the landscape of just like a strong, like looming structure. Just you can't beat it, and especially during the fall time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Meikujaku is, kind of sets the standard. It's like the perfect mix between like the big full leaf Japonicums, and then you get into like the lace leaf varieties. It's kind of right there in the middle. It's like on the verge of being a dissected Japonicum, but not quite there. Kind of that Matsumure style of Japonicum. You know what I mean? Like it's really cool texture. You're right. I love seeing larger sizes too, just because that leaf shape, you don't see that in any other thing in the garden. So it kind of has its own thing going on. So like its texture is unique to itself. And when you combine the amazing fall colors that it gets, and then when it's leafing out in the spring with those big red samaras hanging on, there's just so much going on with Meikujaku that you're right. It's got some of the best texture out in the garden for sure.
All right. Now this is one I was really excited about, because this is where my mind starts to go a little wild sometimes.
Nice.
And I'm happy that this was a category on this collector's corner, and that is going to be great pairings.
Great pairings. Yeah, I love this because my brain works a lot of times in that way too. Like when I'm thinking about where I'm planting stuff in my garden, I try to put some thought into it, of like where I'm going to plant this. Is it going to pair well with what it's surrounded with? And I think if you kind of always keep that in mind and continuously play off the other plants around what you're planting, you create such a dynamic contrast of color and texture and all of those things. I went with a pairing that just been really kind of going off in my garden right now. I've got a Japanese black pine called Yatsubusa, and then I've got it right next to a baldsmith, Acer palmatum baldsmith. They're like the opposite end of the world, right? If you think about it, that kind of just stoic structure of a Japanese black pine is insane. I love how it just kind of had these gigantic candles, look like cathedrals, growing off the top of this thing, bold green color, and you have this bright pink, super fine lace leaf behind it. Just this crazy shape going on, texture wise, and just like I said, they just feel like they're on the opposite end of the planets, but they work so well together.
Yeah, and I can't wait till, that black pine starts putting on some of that black bark.
Yeah.
And then you start to get that play between the pink and that black, and then they got the green over top, and it's just like, it gets me excited. I know we're tree nerds, man, so it just gets me excited thinking about that. And seeing baldsmith is just like, I remember that was one that you were really like, okay, Corbin, like, you may not understand this right now, but baldsmith is one of the coolest, most awesome lace leaf ornatum types, and it took me a couple of years to kind of understand the hype of it. But now, especially seeing some larger sizes like 10 gallons that we've seen, or specimen cultivars in gardens, this is one you do not want to miss out on in your garden.
Yeah, I think it when it comes to lace leaves, it's definitely really high up on my list. I think it's kind of underrated too, and I think sometimes maybe the name plays into that. People aren't as familiar with it. They're usually thinking those more classics when it comes to lace leaf. So, but when you get to experience a bald smith, and especially pairing it with something else that just makes it even pop even more, like Yatsubusa, I think it just, they both elevate each other and bring that kind of just highlight color in the garden and make it stand out even more. You got a nice pairing here.
Yeah, so this is a recent pairing that kind of clicked in my head the other day because, I was picking up a gift for somebody, and I was like, okay, well, they love yellow. I was thinking summer gold, and I was like, well, that's a great tree, but let's get them something with a little bit more flair on it. So I had to pick a sport from summer gold, and we got Anne Irene, and I talk about this plant a lot too, till I'm blue in the face. Y'all are probably tired of hearing about it, but black lace, that's my combo right there.
Man,
I wasn't planning on getting an Anne Irene for myself until I got back home. I set theirs up next to mine to kind of hide it in plain sight. And you talk about a show in the garden with just 2 plants. Like if you were to only buy 2 plants, and you said, give me the widest range that I can get from these guys, I would say, okay, Anne Irene is a great one. You're going to get that spectrum of yellows. You're going to get some variegation on the edge. That's going to be red. It's going to give you great fall color, a great shape. But then if you want some more darker reds, pick that black lace, and you're going to see the play between the pale yellows, the dark reds, and then everything in between.
Yeah. Great texture on both of those plants too, which plays a big part into kind of just what sets them apart. The Anne Irene has that ruffled edge to it, kind of these round, weird, like rounded ruffled edges to the leaf. A little bit brighter color there. You can get some like reds and oranges on those edges. Really cool. And then pairing that with black lace, which is one of the darkest red Japanese maples out there, in my opinion. And then with also having that fine, like serrated kind of sawtooth edge to that leaf, Matsumura style, those two together, all kinds of stuff going on there, man. The yellows, the dark reds, the texture, great pairing there, man. That's a great choice. I think, I don't have an Anne Irene. I do have summer gold. I wish I could fit every cultivar that I'm running out of room, man. I'm running out of room, but great pairing, man. I love that. And which takes us right here to our next category, guys. We got a category that I was thinking just, how we can talk about different varieties of plants. I wanted to talk about what's some of our favorite of the Heat Seeker series. MrMaple has introduced some really amazing cultivars that are kind of, getting us further and further into those hotter climates. And I went with Acer Oliveranum Hot Blonde. It's their flagship introduction. You know what I mean? Like it sets the bar so high when it comes to the heat tolerance, and then being a bright yellow, absolutely amazing color when this thing leaves out. And then as it comes into the summer months, it gets even brighter and brighter and more intense. And then some of the best, I think, just this vibrant kind of pink red that comes in during the fall. I think it's, it's hard to beat a hot blonde. And I have 2 of them in my garden. I have 2 in my collection. And you know me, I'm running out of room. I don't have room to have 2 of things, but I like it so well. I'm like, I got to have 2 of these in my garden.
Yeah, that was one I like seeing it in the 1 gallon. I like seeing it around the nursery just because, you talk about heat tolerance, you talk about fast growing, but then we got some like 25 gallon ones from Buckholtz one day. We put that in the ground, and oh my gosh, if that thing doesn't turn my head every single time I walk past it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great choice on that. I think Hot Blonde, definitely everybody should have a Hot Blonde in their collection. And what'd you pick out?
So, like I said, I'm a little bit of a weirdo, man. I like the weird stuff, and I think that this one, it talks to me, man. This Acer Oliveranum hot chicken.
Yeah, man. Hot chicken is super cool. I mean, it's definitely in a league of its own, like just texture wise and what that leaf is doing. It's so weird. You get like a combination of different styles of leaves on this. Some are going to be more of that kind of traditional Oliveranum style leaf, and then you get further and further. It like dissects even further and further until it gets into that kind of strange feathery texture that you get with like a Hagoromo style. Really, really interesting. I don't think there's any other maples out there that's doing what hot chicken's doing right now, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, I love that gradient change, that slow change you're talking about from that newer growth to the older growth.
Yeah.
And seeing it, stretch from regular kind of palmate looking leaves to Matsumura style, and then being all the way divided back to the bud.
Yeah.
Is awesome, man. And that's just one that's so cool just to see. It's such a distinct looking tree because it has like a curl to it as well. Like it curls up a little bit more than maybe a lot of the other cecilifolium varieties. And I feel like the leaves on it look a little bit more puffed out. Like they present themselves a little bit more than maybe some of the other cecilifolium varieties.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see that. There's a little more substance to it there. It's got a great texture and just bulletproof too. I mean, I have one of these planted in my garden in full sun, and it's just, and I planted it kind of late in the spring, and it's done great, man. Like it's just full throttle ahead. Lots of new growth popping over top of it right now. Looks so good in my garden. Another great choice, man. Hot blonde and hot chicken for our heat seekers. I like it, man. We got a strong list of plants today. Now let's talk about, we talked about heat. Now let's talk about that cool shade, right? Like I like a little shade, especially this time of year, because it's too dang hot to be out in the sun. So I wanted to take a little dive into some shade garden plants.
Yeah, this is one I start to go a little crazy in the shade garden because that's where all the variegated stuff comes out, and that's what some of my favorite stuff. This one that I picked up, it's a recent addition, but it's left a big impact in the garden, in my garden, my little tiny container garden that we got out front of the house, and it is going to be Koko Noeyama.
Mm-hmm. Dude, this thing is absolutely amazing. I think we both kind of stumbled onto this gem of a plant like around the same time, and it just both clicked in our heads. We're like, why don't we have this? This is freaking amazing. Absolutely beautiful variegated hydrangea where it has this like sand dusting variegation in the leaves itself, and it's also like a really interesting bloom on that as well. A lace cap bloom on a hydrangea is one of my favorite kind of styles of blooms. These nice soft kind of purple pink colors on those blooms with that variegated leaf. It's insane, man. It's just such a cool plant. It really stands out. I planted mine in my little shade garden at the house, and we love it, man. Francis loves that plant. We always go out and see what's going on with that one.
Yeah, it's just one, you start looking at it, and it just draws you in closer and closer and closer. I mean, this is one where, I was taking a lot of pictures of this tree, or this bush, this shrub, because it's like, not only does every leaf look different, but then you slowly start to look at the blooms on there. All the lace caps look so beautiful with these little purple, lavender stems sticking up, but then the blooms themselves, they have just kind of, you can see the veining inside of them of all that pigment kind of moving through, and something that I've enjoyed because we're kind of past that blooming phase right now. But like a lot of other hydrangeas, the flowers and the blooms are still on there, but as that kind of vitality has drained out of the bloom itself, it's left like the skeletal pigment structure inside of the flower that just kind of looks like a little tie-dyeing veins and that sort of thing. And it's so beautiful that it's like, even though, okay, we've kind of lost some of the beauty and the luster of this, it still kind of holds on to it. And man, does this brighten up the shade garden.
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, it's super cool, man. You know, because most of the time, like you said, when the hydrangeas are done blooming, you kind of forget about the hydrangeas for a while, you know, until the next time they bloom. But with this being a variegated plant too, you know, there's still a lot of interest there and still a lot of presence in the garden, even when you don't have the flowers on it. So definitely one that I think everybody should add to their shade garden. I went with a shade conifer, right? Because, I mean, you got it. When you get into the shade garden, you want something that's kind of still there during the winter months, right? And it's hard to find that unless you get into some evergreen shrubs or something. But I went with Thujopsis dolobrata Jurassic Park, man. Now, this is one I have experience growing. I don't currently have it in my garden, but I used to have it in Oklahoma. And because I could only grow a few select conifers in Oklahoma because it was just too dadgum hot, this was one I could tuck back in the shade and protect it a little bit from the hot summer sun of Oklahoma. So that's what really kind of got me interested. I was like, man, I need a conifer, but I need something I can grow in the shade and protect it from the heat a little bit because of my climate. And it was just a great addition to my collection. And I love the texture that this thing provides. It has these large, like scale, like dinosaur scale type texture to it. Nice little frosted underneath, and just really cool structure overall.
Yeah, the Japanese Asinaru are super cool. I mean, the texture they provide is awesome. Yeah, I planted one of these at the nursery too. It's kind of in a pretty sunny spot, which is dope because it kind of picks up a little bit of yellows on the tippings where it's getting hit by the sun. So, I mean, if you're in a good climate for that too, you don't have to put this in the shade.
Yeah, it can handle some sun, yeah.
But it works great there because it's going to give you that beautiful conifer look you're looking for, that awesome texture. And, you know, when it's sitting there blowing in the wind, just kind of give you this nice, like, reflecting of that white bottom, like, back to you and just giving you just a little bit more something of substance.
Yeah. There's a cool variegated form of this, too, variegata, that we just recently kind of talked about and looked at. Another cool one that would be great for that shade garden. I love the texture that these bring, and it's cool to have a conifer that you can tuck into some shade and still have a lot of success with it. So let's move right along here. Next category we have is we're just going to talk about some really awesome kind of up-and-coming new introductions that are hitting the market. Ones that, you know, are so new that we don't have a ton of experience growing yet, but we're learning more and more about it as Buckholtz Nursery has joined forces with MrMaple now, and we have these kind of two fronts to explore the world of Japanese maples, right? And so I wanted to talk about for a second Acer Shirasawanum Yellow Canary. You know, I mean, I was telling Matt the other day, I think he's like, man, you know, there's such a high demand for that yellow canary, and I can see why. One, Arium, which is kind of the parent plant to this, is one of the most popular, you know, varieties out there. That golden full moon, I mean, it's just absolutely stunning in the garden. And yellow canary kind of takes it to the next place for that to go, with staying within that kind of that true Arium look to it. It has a little bit larger leaf to it. And man, I think it really comes down to is a really good name on a really good plant, man. Yellow canary kind of plays into your visual mind about what this tree kind of represents, that bright yellow color, and with that kind of large full moon leaf, you can see just a little canary bird, yellow canary flying through there. I love the texture of this plant. I think it's super cool. I think that's why it's so popular. And we're getting this into production here at MrMaple. We're excited about starting to offer more of this.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy this plant as well. I mean, just seeing a nice little set of it's cool, and to see the joy that it brings people is always awesome. They're like, oh yes, I just got a yellow canary, man. You know, it's like it's like this coveted thing for sure, and it is so beautiful. I mean, the spring color is so nice, and it really does. I mean, it looks like a yellow canary out there. That's why Old Talon named it that, and it's very aptly named. Very beautiful plant, and yeah, it's hard to, you know, not pay homage to those older plants, but also put something new that's exciting in. It's dope. Yeah,
I think our modern civilization, it kind of breeds that, you know, what's the newest, greatest thing out there on the market? We're all kind of looking for it. So it's cool, man, when you start seeing, you know, some new maples coming down the line, especially if you're a seasoned collector. You're like, I haven't had anything that I haven't had in a while, you know, like, you know, you get excited about adding something you've never grown, and you know, yellow canary is growing tremendously in popularity, and the more we get it out there, I think people are going to really understand why. So what do you got next?
Yeah, so next up, I haven't mentioned a reticulated variety on this list yet, I don't believe. Maybe, unless you count Purple Curl as reticulated, which, you know, I do. So, but the newest introductions, this one is going to be Ghost Cascade. So, yeah, if you put two and two together, Weeping reticulated variety, Talon Buckholtz introduction. I mean, it's a new ghost, but it doesn't have a new ghost name. It has an old ghost name,
right?
But it's a new one. So it's like, oh my gosh, and seeing this thing in person is pretty dope. I mean, we shot some awesome video with this, and it just fills your mind with all of these awesome ideas about creating a living, you know, waterfall, creating a living feature out of a reticulated variety, making this kind of move however you want to, or even just seeing its true form and seeing what it does. It just excites me because, I mean, I love reticulated varieties.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to kind of break the barrier. I think in when it comes to reticulated, typically you're expecting, you know, an upright tree, and now that we have a weeping form of that is really, really exciting, cutting edge stuff right there. I mean, you think about how many seedlings, you know, that Talon had to go through to find something like this. And the odds of discovering that, you know, are very slim. And so when you put all of those things together, it just kind of like puts the tree higher, you know, on a pedestal, just because, you know, like I said, the odds of discovering a weeping reticulated variety, pretty slim. But here we have it, Ghost Cascade, one that we're working feverishly to try to get this thing as much as possibly can in production, because I think it's going to be a hit. I think when it comes to what people have in mind, and, you know, what people are attracted to, and I mean, and all of the other sales on those reticulated type Japanese maples kind of sets the tone for what this is going to do to the market. I think Ghost Cascade is really cool, man. Just thinking about that weeping reticulated variety. I love the Ghost series. I love reticulated Japanese maples, and can't wait till we can get that one out to everybody.
Yeah, that's gonna be all right. I need me one of those in the garden right now. Yeah. It's going a special place for sure.
All right, next category, guys. We went with old school cultivars. I like the old school cultivars. You know, we're always, you know, we just got done talking about some brand new introductions out there. And that's why I was like, you know, the next category, let's talk about some of those old school ones that's been around a while, and still gets people excited, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is a reason why they've been cultivated for as long as they have, and don't skip on the old guys just because you want that new school, man. There's a lot to be learned from that old generation of, you know, Japanese maples.
That's right. Yeah, there wouldn't be a new school without the old school, so you got to get, you know, pay homage to that. I went with one that many, many years ago that Matt and Tim brought to my attention, and I love that what they do, their passion is so infectious because, you know, they like to bring trees into, you know, the world around us. And I think some of these get lost, you know, like, you know, the popularity of different cultivars, I think kind of pushes different nurseries to grow, you know, only these, you know, because these are always the ones that people are looking for. But I think Matt and Tim have always stayed true to their element of just paying homage to the old school classics while also pursuing new things. And I love that balance. I went with Acer palmatum Shiraname. This is old school, been around forever. But I remember Matt and Tim talking about they had a friend that was always talking to them about this. Man, if you want to be growing a tree, you need to be growing Shiraname. This thing is amazing. And then once they kind of discovered it and started growing it and learning more about it, it became one of their favorites as well. Beautiful, beautiful colors on this right now. Even, you know, I could have put this in my category with summer interest. I could have put this in amazing texture. This has a great leaf shape to it, kind of Match Murray style leaf. And really cool, like shades of like oranges, yellows, little pink blushings on that. And it kind of transitions throughout the season, depending on if you're in early summer, midsummer, late summer, kind of. It really does have an array of different colors, and the way the light shines through the leaf too, kind of plays into that texture and light form in the tree itself. It's really nice.
Yeah, and I think what you're harping on too is like, this is a common with all of the old school Japanese maples is, you know, whenever we're getting those new guys, usually we're looking for one specific trait that kind of pushes it past everything else. But then with some of the older school ones, you have all of these compounding things that just create this, like the summation of a beautiful tree. And it's just going to be classic and timeless.
Absolutely. You got a good one on here that I think everybody, when you think of this, everybody thinks classic, right? OG. What do you got here?
Guys, we got the Coral Towers, a.k.a. Sengu Kaku. This is, I mean, if you're starting in maples, there's a couple ones I kind of recommend to get under your belt before you kind of, you know, dive in. Just to kind of build like a basis of the families. So Makawi Atsubusa, I think that's a great one to start identifying. Sengu Kaku is another great one to identify just because of these characteristics. And it's great to identify because it has amazing coral bark that is hard to misidentify.
No, I think you spoke on to something there that I think, you know, I'm kind of going off in my head about how that these old school cultivars are kind of a collection of all of these attributes that, you know, a lot of different things are going on in that one tree. And Sengu Kaku does that, man. I mean, you got the winter interest, the coral bark. You've got this bright lush green that comes out over top of that when it first leaves out in the spring. That bark's still kind of nice and red from the winter, so you have this really crazy contrast. And then you get into the summer months and you start having that new flush growth over top, and then fall comes and you've got some amazing yellow fall color over top of that coral bark. It's absolutely insane. Such a true classic. I think, you know, very popular. I mean, you know, Sengu Kaku is always one that if we have it in stock, we're selling them, you know. So definitely, I think like you said, it's probably one of those trees on a lot of people's first few tree list when they first get going with it, because the idea of having something with this crazy coral red bark on it is wild when it comes to a tree. Provides a lot of interest in the garden for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just love it. I love seeing it as a large size tree. It's accessible to so many people just because, you know, you see one in the neighbor's garden, you ask them, and you can go find one just about at any, you know, nursery. Yeah. But it's just so special. It's hard to deny how beautiful that bark is. And obviously it gets a little bit of scarifying as it goes on. You know, you lose some of that. But I just love even the play between that new growth and the old growth bark, where you're kind of getting this red slowly emerging out of like the grayer bark. But then you have that play between the reds and the grays, and then you have the fall colors playing with each other, with that red kind of picking back up as fall kind of starts to emerge. And yeah, I love this tree. I've flown a drone over top of a gigantic one at Talon's place during the fall time, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's magical, and it's a great one. Pretty good grower. So awesome.
All right, guys, we're down to our last category here. It's been cool, man. We've had a great list of plants, and we're not done yet. We got two more trees to talk about here. One more category. We're going to talk about lace leaf Japanese maples, right? I love a good lace leaf Japanese maple. What do you got for your lace leaf?
So yeah, I went a little new school. This is one that I just acquired, I guess, at the beginning of this year, because there were some special conditions. This isn't necessarily one that was in my sights before I saw this, but then after I got it, I was like, man, I was sleeping on this one. And it is Acer palmatum Orangeola, guys.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, Orangeola, gosh, man. I feel like every time I've seen a nice Orangeola, I've always been so impressed with it. You know what I mean? Like it has so much going on texture wise and color. Lace leaf, I think it really does set itself apart from a lot of the other like red lace leaves out there, because one, it's very heat tolerant. Two, like it doesn't have your typical lace leaf shape, where a lot of them are kind of stretching, kind of arching, mounding. Orangeola just wants to go like straight down. Like it's very, very weeping, and you can kind of stake some of those branches up and really play and get some crazy shapes out in the garden. I'm kind of doing that with mine. I've got some really sharp bends, and then I've took that limb and bent it back up and staked it back up. So it's got a lot of movement going on. I think Orangeola really provides that, because it just wants to weep so hard towards the ground, but you can kind of stake up different branches and really create some unique shapes with it.
Yeah, this is one. So the reason why I purchased this one is because we were showing a customer around. She was looking for a nice lace leaf. We found this giant 1 gallon Orangeola. I showed it to her. She wasn't necessarily interested, but then Logan and we start looking like a little bit closer at the bark, and I start to see kind of a cork bark looking texture underneath on the understock of this Orangeola. And I told the lady, I was like, this is actually a very cool, rare tree right here. And she was like, oh, well, it's whatever. I was like, okay, well, I will buy this.
Yeah.
And so I actually ended up getting a Orangeola grafted onto an awesome mutated pine bark, which
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the pine bark has grown pretty quick, so hopefully we'll get some rootstock off of it to see if it's really interesting at all as a tree in its own right. But it's like, for me now, it's how do I display this lace leaf where I can show off the pine bark, and like what you were talking about with the shape. It's exciting because it's like you could have the trunk straight up and down and kind of give it some movement vertically, or you could, what I'm thinking is I'd put this tree at an angle to where you're exposing the pine bark, and then the tree kind of sits further away, and then it kind of weeps down or something like that. So it's exciting, and hopefully, if we ever find any more of those, I think it'll be hard not to take them, but I'd definitely let some customers know for sure.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I love Orangeola. Definitely, a great choice when it comes to lace leaf. And I went with one that I guess would be kind of considered a classic. I went with Acer palmatum Waterfall. Beautiful green lace leaf. And I think what made this one stand out in my mind is, one, I mean, it has some amazing fall colors. Like the bright oranges that you get with that is so intense. And because you have this kind of mounding, cascading form to it. It just looks really wild when it goes into that fall color. But I've been playing around with pruning a lot on mine. Many years ago, I saw at a nursery where they had a waterfall there, and they had pruned the tree throughout its life, and it was quite a mature size. But they had taken any branches that were trying to weep downward, and they had pruned those off and only left branches that were kind of giving this upward movement to it. So it had a really weird shape to it than what you would think with a green lace leaf. It was kind of different. So I've been playing around with some pruning on mine, and what I'm doing is I'm actually kind of making it as a mountaintop. So the bottom is flat across, but then you have these kind of mounds on top, and it looks really cool. It's up on a standard, so it's a high graft, and it literally looks like, from you're walking to it from a distance, it looks kind of like the mountain scene that you would see way off in a distance. Just these little rolling hills, and I've kind of got that pruned in my garden there, and I've got a Looking Glass Falls weeping Japanese maple underneath it, so I got this little mountain range going on. But just, I mean, when it comes to lace leaves, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff, man. When you get out there and pruning and shaping, I think that's so much fun, because now the tree looks like you wanted it to look, not just how it looks normally. And it's cool to kind of play around with that. That's what I've been doing with my waterfall.
Yeah, I mean, lace leaves provide so much opportunity for structure and to learn pruning, because, you know, lace leaves can be a little bit tangled up whenever you first get them, you know. Yeah. Nothing is ever stationary in a nursery most of the time, you know, unless it's going out of business. So
yeah, exactly.
Sometimes trees get moved and lace leaves get a little tangled. So going in there and pruning, giving it a structure that it can really thrive with is important. And then especially getting a little artistic with it it's so cool. And you always want to try to strive for that. Letting a bird, you want to watch a bird fly through the maple, and lace leaves really provide something like that, and it's so awesome.
Yeah, man. Well, this has been fun hanging out with you guys. We appreciate everybody coming and listening to the podcast. We do a podcast every week, so we're always we've got some kind of conversation about plants going on. Me and Corbin thought we'd jump in here today and get this Collector's Corner out there for you guys. Just a cool way to showcase a list of plants and our thoughts on it and how you can use them in your landscape, and great pairings. I mean, we talked about texture, pairings, dwarfs, summer interest, some of our favorite Makawa variances, some plants for the shade garden. We talked about newer introductions, old school stuff, lace leaves. We talked about a lot of cool plants today, man. It's been a lot of fun hanging out.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to drop a like down below. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you're listening on some other podcast platform, make sure to give it a heart or do whatever, save it on there. But we really appreciate it, guys.
Take care.
God bless.
Have a great day.